Well, hello everybody. We're still doling out the things. I'm Gary Mariano with Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, Warner Archive Collection. I'm dropping everything on my table here. We're here to do superheroes. Look better in blue. I think you knew that. And you guys all love the series, I know that. I'm going to bring out our esteemed panel and then we'll chat away a lot. We're going to have some fun. I'll put out the ground rules in a minute. Let's start with, we'll just hand them their cards as they come in. From the Warner Archive Collection. Warner Archive, you might know them as our esteemed podcasters for Wondercon. Anybody listen to Warner Archive podcast? All right, there she is. I heard one. Matt Patterson and D.W. Ferranti. From the producer of Batman, The Brave and the Bold, and the producer of Son of Batman, which we premiered last night, Mr. James Tucker. Such a professional organization. The producer, you know this guy, don't you? Yeah! The producer of Green Lantern, the animated series, Giancarlo Volpe. The voice of Green Lantern himself, Josh Keaton. And the producer of the wonderful series, Batman, Beware the Batman, Len Murakami. I like it when you're next to me, Glenn. I can slap you if you say anything wrong. Draw something for me while you're there. Sure. Now, we're going to talk. I'll ask some questions. We'll show some fun clips. At the end, we'll ask you to ask some questions. If you ask good questions, I have some autographed copies of the Blu-rays. There's some autographed copies. You know some of the issues that we are not going to discuss, and particularly programming. I will tell you that. You know, you might have heard the announcement that Beware the Batman will be coming to Toonami in May. Woo! That's the last time we're going to bring up programming. Don't step to the podium and ask me any questions about it, because nobody's going to give you an answer. Got it? Got it. We're here to celebrate these shows, these unique shows that you guys dig, yes? Yes! Celebrate. Have fun with this today. We're going to have a good time. So, let's start down at the end there. Let's go chronologically with Batman, The Brave and the Bold. Actually, this is a good question for all of you three producers. All right. We come from this universe leading into most of these where it was really a Bruce Timm created world. You three were charged with creating
that hack.
He's slacking on some other panel right now. What was it that you three, I mean, how did you get away from that? Where was the inspiration? What were you thinking when you went out to create these very unique series that are so different from what we had before?
Well, my motto was use Bruce's principles and then do exactly the opposite of what he would have done for Brave and the Bold, because his instincts are not Brave and the Bold. So that made it real easy for me, because it was a totally different show. It was a show, you know, that's just not his flavor, but it is mine. So
so you call that Tucker's Doctrine?
Tucker's Doctrine, yeah, the manifest destiny. But so no, you learn a lot from Bruce, and then you use that to make your own voice come out. He gives you a lot of principles when you're working with him, and just, you know, it's like being an apprentice under the Dark Sith, but I better not say anymore.
And that was the last time James Tucker worked for Warner Brothers Animation. Giancarlo?
Well, I mean, my situation was slightly unique in that I was actually making the show with Bruce, so it's kind of hard to tell him that I'm going to do, break away from what he normally does. But it's a good thing. Like, these guys have worked with Bruce before, and obviously learned a lot from him, or I guess. And so part of what I brought to the table, I guess, is that I was like, I love that you take animation so seriously. And but I also think that Avatar, which I also directed on, was one of my favorite things in that it kind of embraced romance and comedy and some of the things that weren't as prominent in some of Bruce's previous work. So that was something that we really emphasized, myself and Jim Krieg, the writer producer. And I don't know, I happen to like the way that it all turned out, and I thought that Bruce really did too. So that was rewarding to see that we kind of steered him a little bit out of his comfort zone, and he really dug it.
Well, I'll add that before Glenn gets to come in. But when you're working with Bruce, he has his own set of ideas, but he does look to you if you're working with him. And we worked with him on Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. It was how do you bring out some of the things that he normally wouldn't lean toward. Just because, we're all individuals, we all have our set ideas, but he likes to be challenged out of his comfort zone. He doesn't make it easy for you. He will make you work to get your way on a project, but then he'll plus it up. So, and then you learn a lot, and then when you get to do your own thing, you bring that with you. So it's a great learning experience. But he is the Dark Lord. So.
I think the thing on Beware was what area of Batman do we now cover? Because so much was kind of in the works. I mean, Bruce kind of did the definitive Batman and kind of left James and I with
crumbs,
everything else. So, and at the time, I think they were working on Year One and working on Dark Knight. So we just tried to go in a completely different direction and try to. I mean, after seeing what GC was doing with Green Lantern, I think I was a little skeptical about working on CG. And then I saw what they were doing on Green Lantern, and it was, I was really impressed with the level of acting and just how much they were able to get with TV animation. So that was real promising. So I think we just pushed to go more cinematic or play with the lighting more, or what we couldn't do in 2D is actually have interactive lighting. So what we could do with CG is put Batman all in black in a black room and have him move around in it. So those kind of filmic aspects were all kind of open to us that hadn't been done before. So.
All right, speaking of departing from Bruce, Tim, and Mikhail,
wrote the song, Ben Jones directed it. Yeah.
Has anybody ever talked about Batman the musical? Because I would see that in like 2 seconds.
Well, that was a thing where, even way back on BtBatB and New Adventures, and then around that time there was even talk of an actual Broadway musical based on Batman, and so we said, "What? Let's do it." So, and then the crazy people at Cartoon Network and DC said, "Okay," and we were like, "What? Really?"
So by playing
Neil Patrick Harris, of course.
By playing that, did Jelinek get like a couple dollars in his pocket?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure, a little bit, yeah. We had to join the music union to do that, because he wrote 3 songs, I wrote 2, yeah. So.
Wow.
what was there? I know the difficulty factor. Balance the difficulty factor versus the fun factor for you.
Oh, well, sheer ignorance. We did not know how hard it would be. And as every step along the way, it got harder and harder. And thank God we had Andrea Romano, and we had the musicians, the composers from Dynamic Music Partners, Lolita, Mike, and Chris. And I wrote my 2 songs one night. I think I woke up and I think I should write a song. And I did, and yeah, so so no, it came about because we really did not know what we were doing, and luckily the fates were on our side. We got Neil Patrick Harris. Every actor that we cast for the parts in Brave and the Bold happened to sing, especially John DiMaggio. The show, of course, later on we had him sing like 3 more times because he was such a wonderful singer. So. And of course, we ended up doing more musical interludes after that. We just it was like crack cocaine. We're like, oh, we got to do more. So, not Bruce's Batman, no.
Is there a character that draws more instant laughs than Aquaman? Or DiMaggio's Aquaman, I guess is the point.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like a breakout character for us, and you know that was definitely a case where Andrea casting the right person. If it had been cast incorrectly, he would have never. It could have gone totally the opposite direction, and he would only been in 1 episode and never heard from again. But he really contributed a lot to the enjoyment of the show, and the enjoyment coming from making it, because he's a blast to work with. So.
Well, being Mr. Keaton's here, that's a good question about casting. Because how he gets a job, I have no idea. You know I love you.
I love you too, Gary.
Giancarlo, when you were looking for a Green Lantern, I mean, I'm assuming it was attitude more than voice. What prompted you to pick Josh?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's misleading about the design of Green Lantern, and this is partially the way Bruce designs all of his characters, is that a lot of the people trying out we're going for this over-the-top sort of thing. And, you know, it was very Patrick Warburton-y. In fact, maybe he may have even been one of the people that tried out. But which is cool, but it wasn't quite what we were looking for. We just kind of needed someone that seemed... I hesitate to make the Han Solo comparison because I feel like a lot of people do that when they develop heroes nowadays, but it's that mix of cockiness, but like with a heart of gold. And we thought that Josh like really nailed that. Like he just sort of seemed like you could trust him, but at the same time, like you'd always have to kind of keep your guard up because you don't know when he's gonna, you know, get you into trouble at first or something like that. So yeah. And obviously his acting chops, you know, were very important too, which he brings very much.
Josh, what did you go into that role thinking?
This was a scary role for me because up until this point, most of the stuff that I played was, you know, the teen hero and all of that. And to be honest, I kind of was thinking Patrick Warburton, but my voice just didn't go down that far. So. But I didn't really know a whole lot about Green Lantern. It was, I knew a lot more about Spider-Man when I did that because that was one of my favorite childhood comics, and this one I actually had to do a lot of reading for to really understand him and get it. And I basically took my portrayal mostly from there's this Jeff Johns issue of Green Lantern. I want to say I always get confused. It's either Rebirth or Secret Origin, and he shows up to enlist in his dad's flight jacket and knowing that he's going to get disowned by his family. And that completely summed up Hal Jordan. I was like, he's going to do whatever he needs to do, and that's really what I based the performance on. And voice-wise, I just tried to go a little bit lower than I usually go. And,
I think we should see a moment of Josh up here. What do you think? Mikhail, Green Lantern?
the crew on the ship without Jason Spizak and Greg Lyle and Kevin Michael Richardson, who you all just heard. They were amazing to work with, amazing actors, and I couldn't watch that without mentioning them, and I'm sure you guys all know who they are, but they're amazing. Oh, and the other thing that was different about this from a lot of the other stuff that I've worked on was how how mature and kind of dark the tone was. I really didn't know that it was going to be that going into it. So one of the directions that I kept getting in the booth was, you know, flatter, 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 and you know, kept pulling it back because, you know, it's hero stuff. It's fun, and or at least that's what I thought. And I originally kind of went into doing it a little bit more gung ho, a little bit more broad, I guess. But yeah, and then getting pulled back and pulled back and pulled back really seemed to work for this. And I love the show. I think it came out amazingly.
Yeah, I remember, like, you know, those early episodes when you're trying to find a character, like Bruce on the other side of the glass would be like, he's going too big, it sounds too cartoony. His
subtle way.
His subtle way. And then, like, our voice director,
Lisa Schaefer.
Thank you, Lisa Schaefer would be like, just pull it back a little bit. You know, she'd get on the microphone and tell Josh, you know, so she kind of translates for Bruce. But, you know, I think we all figured it out very, very quickly.
Hey, for that, I mean, when I was pulling this clip on Blu-ray, you see every crevice and every rock. You see the pores of the, yeah, it is gorgeous. You're right. I mean, you see the pores on the skin of the guys. When you're making a CG series, is it that much harder, but that much more gratifying, and especially being able to put it out on Blu-ray?
Well, yeah, I remember when high definition was kind of a new thing. Like, one of the things on the news at the time was that makeup artists and actors were freaking out because suddenly their blemishes were a lot more apparent on screen. And we had a similar situation in that, like, now not only was this extra pressure to make everything look good, but there was all of our mistakes, you know, are extra emphasized. So yeah, but the good news is, you know, we would review every episode of the series on a high definition TV and, you know, 1080p and all that. And so it was always a little bummer for us when it would come out, especially on, depending if you have high def Cartoon Network or not, but it come out on standard definition TV and you'd be like, oh man, you can't even see all of the extra detail that we put all this time and effort into adding to that. So I'm super happy that it's finally on Blu-ray and that you can see all of that extra love.
You can't cheat anything. You can't fake anything with CG. You have to examine the characters from every angle and make sure you don't miss anything, soles of the shoes, and...
Right. That's a common thing, is you have to design the bottom of their shoes. Like, in the event that you might see it, and you do. You know, if a character walks, you're going to see the bottom of their shoes.
Yeah, but everything, every texture, you just have to examine everything, scrutinize everything super closely. We could get away with things in 2D. You can kind of cheat things in CG. Even the things that you missed would maybe come back and bite you later on. Any little detail, button, or oh, that button doesn't work, or I don't know, that panel doesn't open, or...
I remember at one point when we were reviewing animation, Bruce said, you know, this is the first time in my television career that I've worked on animation that's on ones. And for those of you who don't know animation, what that means is that every single frame of film, there's a new drawing, which in CG it's not really drawing, it's a render, or it's a new pose or something like that. But typically in television animation, you're only getting it every other frame, which can, you know, sometimes give it a little bit more of a jerky or limited feel. You know, we obviously try to hide that whenever we can. But the beauty of CG is that it's super smooth. And then the downside of that, though, is that if it's not convincing, it looks extra bad. So we have to call, you know, even more retakes to make sure that it works.
Even on a hold, the characters are slightly moving to keep them alive. So a still shot isn't exactly a still shot. There's some noise or something keeping it alive. So yeah, I definitely had a lot to learn, and but yeah, now on Blu-ray you can kind of see all that stuff, warts and all. So
we had a shorthand when a character would like just stop completely and be like, he turned to stone. Like, that was our thing. It's like, that was a common retake, like, please don't have the character turn to stone at the end of the frame. And it's just a matter of kind of like having them do this, you know, just that much, and then suddenly it's convincing.
The good thing on Batman so much of it takes place at night, and so much of it takes place in the dark. That really kind of helped, but that also gave the show a certain atmosphere. I mean, we kept talking about we were trying to do film noir, but there aren't really any color film noir movies. So that was something that we were trying to, how do we keep it noir without it just sort of being black and white, and how do we inject color into it in a way to keep it kind of vivid and alive. The other thing we found too is if that car doesn't behave properly or that building doesn't look right, it looks really wrong because you're so used to what real people look like walking, and in CG when that doesn't look right, it looks really bad. So,
You know, speaking of real people, I think we ought to watch a scene from an episode that hasn't aired yet.
What? Yeah.
I need a little enthusiasm.
Yeah.
They're the first real people like maybe Magpie fighting with Katana. Would that be okay? Yeah. Let's go with him. We're not used to that over on the Bruce and Tucker side.
no, they have teeth. We've always put teeth in.
I think the rule of thumb, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that Bruce doesn't do the lines in between that define
okay, all right.
the
I was
visuals.
thought he had one big tooth.
He kind of makes it, it's like a mouth guard.
Yeah, flipper. They call them flippers in the baby beauty pageants.
And how you know that, I don't want to know.
Hey, flippers make their way into the child actor scene too. I used to have them. Yeah. I was doing a show called Back to the Future, the animated series, and I got 2 of my teeth knocked out horsing around with a pool table. And I had to wear flippers for a while.
Oh, man.
They were permanent teeth too, so these are kind of fake.
I'm going to go back to the casting for a minute. Glenn and James actually had to recast the Batman for both of their series. What was that like for you guys? What were you both looking for? And was it difficult?
Well, I knew we needed someone for Brave and Bold who understood the more comedic aspects of Batman, but wouldn't go broad with it. Would be just do it very flat, very straight, but also understand what is supposed to be funny even in a flat read. So we auditioned about, I want to say about 6 or 7 actors, but in my head I always thought Diedrich Bader would be perfect for this. And then my default was Will Arnett, and ironically Will Arnett does Batman in the Lego movie, so. I still think Diedrich for Brave and the Bold was letter perfect. I mean, he was exactly the right choice.
I also, I have to add, like, I did a Justice League Adventures DVD recently, and I just sort of like, just give me Diedrich for Batman. Like why are we even rethinking this? Like, the whole tone of that movie was a little bit younger and funnier, and so I was like, yeah, that's the one. Like, James already did that work.
Yeah, he's for that kind of Batman. And ironically, in the 80s, I think he was on a TV show with Adam West called Danger Island or something. Anyway, you guys would know. But anyway, so the DNA was there with, he got some Batman from osmosis with Adam West, so.
I think the direction we were going with on Beware was Batman kind of knows that he's messed up, so he's trying to be a little bit more proactive. He's not like dark and brooding and kind of sitting in the Batcave. He's actually trying to work through his sort of crime autism or whatever. So we knew we wanted him.
I like that.
Well, we figured at a young age he sort of saw this crime and it was sort of imprinted on him, and then he kind of has, James Bond as his sort of his father figure. So it was kind of destined for him to sort of be Batman. So, but I think we played him more as he wants to be alone and work out his issues, and he doesn't want any help, but he's aware of it. So we knew we wanted the Bruce Wayne to kind of be separate from Batman, but we just figured that there's been a lot of separation between Bruce Wayne and Batman in the past, so we were trying to link them together more. So Anthony Ruivavar came in, and he really brought a lot of that to the table, this sort of angsty quality, but without it getting too heavy. So I think Batman ended up being a little bit more human, and doing the different villains, I think, brought out a different side of Batman than you kind of normally don't see. So,
Well, with that, just in case you didn't know, on the Blu-ray season 1, part 1 of Batman: Streets of Gotham, or Beware the Batman, season 1, part 1, you can see that katana fight towards the end of this. We're going to watch a clip now that features a villain in a far distant episode that nobody's seen yet, and you get the first shot at it. So, Mikhail, let's see a little something. Then we're going to do some Q&A.
Oh, okay. I had a book and record set with Man-Bat in it when I was a kid. Oh, okay.
I think that was the Neil Adams.
Good. Good for you, Man-Bat.
I love at the big talking about noir. I love at the beginning of that when they take off and you can see the shadow of the Tepper Industries or whatever it is there on the floor
Yeah.
there. Oh man, looks good.
That's really cool.
All right, and a reminder, you can get these through Warner Archive Collection, the Blu-rays. And a little thank you to the guys down at the end of the table. You don't know, Dan and Matt and George Feltenstein are out there looking out for you guys at all times. I know you guys asked for certain series. When are they going to come to Blu-ray? You should be thanking them alone just for getting these to Blu-ray and looking out for what you want. That's what they do every day.
But really, you should be thanking these guys because those shows are freaking awesome.
We just sit there etching each little disc, and but that doesn't take talent.
All right, so when you step up and ask a question, you got to state your name so we remember it for later and you have a chance at winning.
Okay.
And remember the rules, no programming questions. Go.
All right. My name is Jillian. Big fan of all three shows. My question is in regards to the recent appearance of Aya in the Smallville issue. That was kind of surprising in a few panels, and I was wondering what would be your personal canon for that appearance that she made?
That's a good question. I just found out about this like a couple days ago, and I think it's awesome that that they did that. It definitely is a little bit of a continuity, jump from what we were doing. But I'm kind of cool with that. Like, I'm not super precious about like, no, everything has to go the way that we thought it would. And so I'm actually really just flattered that she's in there. And I'm also, for the record, we had this joke back when we were making the show that if Aya ever did appear in the comics, they would make her like overly sexualized or something and kind of like break her character. And I was really relieved that like they were very faithful to what she looks like in the show. So it's cool. I actually want to go out and buy that and read it now and see what they do with it's like seeing your daughter go to college or something.
So you're saying she's under-sexualized in the show?
Well, you know what? That's debatable. I'm not entirely innocent there, but they could have pushed it a lot further, and they at least matched to what we did. Good call.
Thank you.
All right, and Jillian brought up a good point. I know you love all three of these series, but if you can lean toward telling me which one you like best, it might reflect on which DVD, which Blu-ray you get.
You won't hurt anybody's feelings.
Ooh, that's a tough predicament to put people in.
Yes, sir.
Hello. I just want.
You are.
I'm sorry. My name is Neil Southwell. Hello. And we've met before. But I just wanted to thank Giancarlo and Glenn and James for actually creating a superhero series that I can share with my two 6 to 11-year-olds. Which is something that I cannot do with the comics these days, not unless I go back to like 1970. So, which fortunately I can, thanks to the long boxes. So I was just curious, what advice, it seems that DC Comics themselves, when we ask, what do you have that I can share with my kids? They told me last year, oh, go see Teeny Titans or this very, very kiddie book, which is just too, I mean, my kids are still too cool for school for something that young. So what advice would you give to like DC comic writers to be able to create something that's more all ages, something that my 6 to 11-year-olds can enjoy as well as myself?
Who wants to take that first?
Well, all I know is that, you know, the TV shows we work on, either because we're forced to by the networks, we kind of have to write them to a certain level that, to me, equates to the kind of comics I was reading, you know, way back when. Where it was an all-ages book, but it wasn't written down. You didn't think you were reading a kiddie book, even though I was a kid reading it. There were also adults reading the very same book, and there's some way of writing it where it kind of manages to satisfy both audiences, and that's kind of what we have to do when we make these TV series. So, I don't know. I mean, comics are kind of in their own realm now, and their audience has grown with them and actually reached retirement and Social Security with them. So they're writing to a much older demographic than I think even they were aware of when I was reading them, you know. So the fact that there's, you know, 50-year-old guys in comic book stores now is not what they had planned. So they're kind of following that trend, and you know, you can't write something for someone who's used to reading, you know, Angela's Ashes or whatever, and you know, and then have that same audience appeal, or that same work appeal to a 6-year-old. So they're in a bind. I don't know. I mean, for us it's good because you just have to watch our shows.
Yeah, maybe we're the only avenue for it.
Well, I think
the long boxes and the collections, the archive books, the old stuff is still good. I don't know if it feels that way to the kids, but you know, I can still read that stuff very easily. So.
that's what I do read to them, actually, the 60s and 70s.
What I'm always preaching to the crew is like, let's just tell intelligent stories and then kind of do a pass where we like just tone down like the violence or, you know, anything that's a little bit too adult, but start from like a place where it's like, tell a story that you would want to hear. And the formula seems to sort of work well. You know, it seems like people have been responding, so that would be what I would say to them. Maybe look at it that way.
I think the difference is we have 22 minutes to tell a story, and the trend now is big story arcs. I remember talking to Bruce not too long ago about how he picked up like an old Jim Aparo, I think Brave and the Bold, and he was shocked how condensed and how much was crammed into one issue. You had to tell the story all in one issue. He was like, oh, I can't believe it, like that it's a self-contained story. So
and that was 17 pages at the time too.
Yeah,
right.
and I think, I mean, we grew up on that, so I think that's kind of what we're trying to do. I mean, not to knock what's going on with comics, it's just we have a space issue. And I think now they're thinking, you know, trade paperbacks and longer story arcs, and like, we can't fit 1 million characters into one episode. I mean, I think we try, but you know, we have one shot. We have 22 minutes to tell a concise story. So that's what we're focusing on.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Let's see how many of these questions we can actually get through today. We got about 15 minutes to go. You're filming us while asking, so make it quick and snappy. Come on.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Chen. I'm a film student graduating this year. And I just want to thank the makers of Green Lantern and Beware the Batman to create an anime show that's very character-driven and very storyline-driven. Anyway, my question is in regards to Beware the Batman. It's about the character of Magpie. I understand that she suffers from dissociative identity disorder and kleptomania, but I know she's a plethora of mental diagnoses. So I was wondering, do you think Magpie suffers from some sort of paraphilia disorder, which is a sexual arousal towards non-human objects and situations. I just wrote a paper. I just wrote a paper about her in my abnormal psychiatry.
This is where we have to actually get to other questions. So give us the question and get it done. Go.
Okay.
One line. Go.
Do you think Magpie also suffers from paraphilia disorder?
I think we were just taking the old character Magpie and playing off of her name and trying to parallel her with Batman, having kind of a dual issue. So that's all we were focusing on, and Batman's working on curing himself and she's not. So that's the main point.
Good answer. Thank you, Mr. Chin.
No problem.
It's such a great relationship, and that is unhealthy.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Saldana, and my question is for Josh. So, Josh, what is it like voicing heroes like Teen Hercules or Green Lantern or Furno from Hero Factory?
What is it like?
Was it like voicing heroes? Yeah.
It's pretty sweet. I mean, you get to do things that well, I get to do things or pretend to do things that I would never get the chance to do in real life. I don't have a power ring, and I don't have arachnobatic powers, and I'd like to think that in some of these life-threatening situations that I'd rise to the occasion and you know, be brave. But who's to say? I've never had to actually do that. So you get to live vicariously through these characters, and I think that's what we love to do as actors, is just play at that and kind of explore what we might do.
You're my hero, Josh.
And you're mine.
All right. Thank you, Gabriel. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Alex Weitzman. Hello to a few you have met before. I have a question really for Giancarlo and Glenn. You both started in cell animation and working particularly in storyboards. Is there a different, you mentioned a lot of the technical differences in the CG stuff, but just in terms of cinematic language, how do you storyboard a CG series differently from, say, a cell animated series?
Oh man, it's a longer question than I probably have time to address, but I'll give you one example. One, in CG, you can actually move the camera, I can back up a second, you can do it like this, which you can't do in 2D, it's more like this. And I know that seems almost like the same thing, but it actually makes it feel a lot more realistic when the camera can pivot and rotate a lot like that. And so that makes storyboarding it extra hard, because you now have to simulate those camera moves through your drawings.
I'm going to tell a GC story. I went into, while they were kind of working on animation for Green Lantern, and he goes, wow, we can actually have the character turn their head and keep talking. And in 2D, you kind of can't do that. Like, you kind of have to keep the head fixed. But profile talking is very difficult. But to have continuous talking while the head is turning, and I never really thought about that. And he goes, wow, look, we can do that. So that's one thing that I always...
My real life example of that, or my real life, from Star Wars, when Chancellor Palpatine is like, you know, the dark side of the Force is a pathway to... He's saying that line while he's turning to Anakin, and it's like, oh, you can never do that in 2D. You can in CG.
Yeah, we do a lot of this in 2D. Sometimes. Talking where you can't see the mouth. So.
Thank you, Alex.
I didn't know that.
Good morning. My name is Brian, and I also have a question for Josh. Did you have issues with getting in or out of character, you know, before and after the booth? And did you have a process to get into character?
No, not really.
You wore the suit, right?
Yes.
He's wearing it now.
I wouldn't say that there was a process. I mean, my process would have just been going over the scripts. We usually get the script the night before, and you just kind of go over that, go through the story, figure out you know, what your objectives are throughout it, and what you're going to do, and that's really most of the preparation that I do. The rest of it is just going in there and trusting the director and the other actors and playing around. I think that the prep would probably be to just stay as relaxed as possible so that you're ready for whatever direction gets thrown at you. Because how you might have come in there imagining it might be totally different from how Giancarlo or Bruce or somebody else that's actually seen the storyboards and knows the tone and everything, how it's going to be. So you just really have to be open for anything. But yeah, I wouldn't say that there was a whole lot of actual getting into character or anything like that there. You just kind of jump in and out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Didn't you bring the Green Lantern Happy Meal mask?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, you know what? I guess, yeah, there was when they were doing the promotional toys, I had to get the Green Lantern mask, and it was made for a kid, so it barely fit on my face. Yeah, I recorded a couple episodes with the little Happy Meal toy on. That helped. It did help.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Eric Bradley. I love the Green Lantern. And you also mentioned that the shows that you guys make are for 22 minutes. So I was wondering, how long does it take to make a show, that whole creative process to make your show, whether it's CG or just, your regular animation?
Isn't it, it's like 9 to 12 months? Is it something like that?
I can't remember. I mean, animation overseas with 2D is 16 weeks. But the process before that, from script to boarding and everything, is how long, James?
Oh, God.
I can't remember.
I think we tend to not want to think about it.
I mean, CG is longer because you have to build everything first before you kind of film it.
And also you're getting, each episode is coming back in different stages, right? From what I understand.
Yes.
With 2D, you basically get your show in, and you edit it, and then another show's coming in from overseas the next week. But you're dealing with one show at a time, generally, even though some things may be in pre-production. So while I'm working on a script for one show, another show is in editing, and then another show is getting sound put on it and music. So it's a stair-step.
Yeah, normally we have like 3 crews, so we're dealing with about maybe 6 shows in production at one time in various states, one kind of coming in and one going out. So, I mean, we're getting the first episode back by the time we're finishing sometimes the storyboard on the 13th episode. Sometimes it's like that, and then it just keeps going.
And you have to remember, you're flipping from different stories, so you're working on the script of one story that's further ahead than the show you just got back, that you're trying to put the finishing touches on. So you kind of have to keep in mind keep track of things especially if there's an arc.
I'd be like, is Aya, did she build her body yet or not? I can't remember. Like, because you're watching things out of order, so you have to stop and ask these continuity questions all the time. Is she in Smallville, the comic yet?
Yeah, I don't remember the titles. I'm like, where's the one with the guy with the thing? Which one's that? Because they all blend together after a while because you're working on so many at one time.
All right, we got about 10 minutes to go.
My name is Mary, and all of you guys' shows were, when they're on, they're the first thing I go to on my TiVo. They're all my favorites, but I have a soft spot for Beware the Batman because Anarchy is my favorite DC character. So my question is, what are you guys working on now, and is there any chance I can see more Anarchy on TV? I love finding stuff of him at Walmart and McDonald's. Thank you.
Is anybody allowed to say anything about what they're working on now?
I'm working on my tan.
Okay.
I can. I mean, I'm at Riot Games now, working on the greater League of Legends property. So, please subscribe to League of Legends on YouTube, and you can probably see the shorts and stuff that I'm doing, that I'm helping to create.
We're working on the next slate of the DC DTVs, and can't talk about them specifically yet, but the Son of Batman comes out May 6th.
Exactly, on Blu-ray combo pack.
And it's all anarchy, everything. It's just anarchy.
Even if it doesn't look like him, he's really that character.
All right, as a quick reminder, we do have a Warner Archive. Warner Archive is available both on Blu-ray, on DVD for order, and we also have Warner Instant. So we'll show you a little teaser for that. Got a quick question?
Yeah.
Make it quick.
My name is John. I think all this show is very beautiful. I'm a film student, so I appreciate everything, all the work goes in. I want to know what's it like to be able to take like an unknown character or a little known character and develop them for children and adults.
Wow. When you say unknown, do you mean like just like
original?
Like original characters, or yeah?
Well, there are some characters that you like guys pull deep from comics that I wouldn't know because I grew up watching Adam West and animated series, and I only know what they showed me. So when you guys pull up characters like in Brave and the Bold, like Clock King, I can remember, but other things like that, how do you develop that or original characters for both children and adults?
The tough thing is a lot of times you kind of have to throw out their origin stories because sometimes they're too complicated and too convoluted. And like I said, we have to sum the character up in 22 minutes. So a character like Magpie, who's not that well known, we just have to streamline it so it makes sense in, 22 minutes.
Something that seemed to work really well for us was like if you could describe their archetype in 1 or 2 words. It's a great launching point because then you kind of get it. Larfleeze is quite obviously Gollum from Lord of the Rings. So once we all sort of understood that, then it was like, well, how can we make him slightly different than Gollum, but for the most part, be that type of character?
Brave and the Bold, I was constantly having to describe these very C-list characters to my story editor, Michael Jelnick, co-producer Michael Jelnick, because he has no knowledge of comics. And it really was fun because he'd say, who is BtBatB? And, I innately know because, I was reading the comics, so I'm like, oh, that's a good question. He just is. So, Michael would kind of make me validate these characters I wanted to use. And so it made me think about, well, what's the essence of this character? What is he about? And then once I proved to Michael that there was something there, he would say, oh, I get it. And he would go and come up with a tact for this character. Because, the old comics aren't very, character developed. You know what I mean? Things are very broad. I mean, BtBatB is a guy who matches up different animals and makes monsters. So that's all I cared about. I just wanted him to make monsters, but Michael's like, who is he? Who is he? I'm like, you figure it out. I don't know. But Brave and the Bold, we were constantly having to do that because that's pretty much the show was about. Who's this obscure character, and why should we care about him?
All right, well, thank you very much. I'm going to need to see when we're all done. Jillian, Neil, Alex, Brian, Eric, Mary, and John over here. In the meantime, I want you to give a big round of thanks for Giancarlo, Matt Patterson, James Tucker, Giancarlo Volpe, Josh Keaton, and Glenn Murakami. Thank you very much for coming.